Hello and welcome to another episode of Get Wrecked, the series here where we swap video game recommendations with those also in the podcast sphere and other content creators. My name is Ben, and today we're going to be discussing two very interesting indie games. But before we dive into that, I want to introduce my guest, Kate. Kate, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's so awesome to be here, Ben. It's great to be back on the show. Really happy to sit down with you and do a get wrecked. I feel like, well, I don't want to spoil it too soon, but I feel like you really nailed it with my recommendation. So I'm just excited to talk about the game and happy to be here with you
Good.
today. So thanks for having me.
No, good. I'm glad. Now you said about being back. Obviously, you was here before you did the indie game draft, right?
With Emily.
So for those who aren't, I guess, familiar with No Small Games, why don't you explain a little bit about sort of what it is you guys do and sort of what it is that you create in your sort of corner of the internet?
Sure, yeah. Over at No Small Games, we are an indie game recap and review podcast. It's hosted by myself and Emily Merritt, and we are about to hit our third year anniversary. So we cover indie games of all shapes and sizes, really trying to celebrate the artistry and put indie games on folks' radar that they may not have heard of before. We also publish reviews to our website, nosmallgames.com, and we just have a lot of fun together. We met playing Animal Crossing on Twitch during the pandemic, and yeah, now we're doing indie game. We're covering indie games together. So I think it started as a podcast, but has sort of turned into like its own thing, and we do a lot of other content besides our podcast, which is bi-weekly, where we cover a featured indie game every other week. And then at the end of the month, we do an indie game roundup, which is when we talk about all the other games and demos we've been playing and new releases. So yeah, we're just excited to be covering indie games, and we both have a big passion for them, and we have a lot of fun. So that's a little bit about No Small Games.
Yeah, it's a really, really great podcast. And I think anything that's kind of highlighting indie games and putting more indie games on people's radar is always a great time. And like I said, you was on with
Mm.
Emily for the indie game draft that we did, which added a lot of indie games to my backlog. So thank you both for that.
Yeah, that was so fun.
It was a really, really great episode. So today we are discussing two indie games, slightly different, but both interesting in their own kind of way, I guess. So I want to start with the game that you recommended to me, which was GRUNN. GRUNN is I'm going to go with kind of the pitch that was made when the game was announced. So it's a 2024 gardening themed game, essentially where you are going around and basically the idea is you're tending to somebody's garden. You're being paid to look after their garden, cut the grass, the hedges, water the flowers and stuff like that. Um, Before we dive into the kind of deeper things that happen in the game, why don't you give me a little bit of like your backstory, like how it was you came across GRUNN, like what it was about the game that kind of intrigued you?
Yeah, so I think so. Actually, Emily was the one that turned me on to GRUNN. It was one of her favorite games of 2024, and I honestly wasn't super interested in it. Like, I didn't really think it would be the kind of game that I like. From what I knew about it, it kind of seemed like a puzzle game. Sort of had that almost like Outer Wilds thing going on, where you do a bunch of runs and try to figure out like basically how to solve the puzzles. And figure out why it is you're here, why you're in this environment gardening. But I will say I do love an uncanny surrealist vibe, and so I think that was kind of what got me to actually give GRUNN a try. um, and I think, yeah, I went into it thinking I don't think I'm smart enough to play this game honestly, because I really struggle with the puzzle sort of almost like roguelite style games. But something about GRUNN I just felt was so approachable to me and so like curious. Like I was just really driven by my curiosity through exploring this world and just seeing what I could come upon. It gives me a very like uneasy feeling being in the world of Grun because it does that thing where you think you know that what you're looking at, but you don't actually know, like, is that what I think it is? Um, I love all the sound effects, and I feel like the world is very sparse in terms of music, but just the visuals and jarring visuals and sounds like really got me hooked. And once I did a couple runs and figured out what was going on, I just got totally sucked into it, and it ended up being one of my favorite experiences, even though it's not typically a game that I would like. So that's like my history with Grun. A little bit. I just feel like it's one of the more approachable of that style of games where you're doing runs and like discovering things about the world and doing puzzles. So yeah, I think the vibes are pretty specific and immaculate.
They are very specific. I I like what you said about the whole kind of Outer Wilds comparison, because once I made that comparison while playing the game, Finn started to kind of click, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, right, this is very much how I need to be doing things. My personal history, I'll be honest with you, I don't know how I came across this game. I really don't. I think it may have been through the indie draft.
Hmm.
I'm not 100% certain. If not, it was probably through like a TikTok or something. But I kind of just try and consume as much content as I can about like different little indie games and things I might have missed, whether that's through other folks in the sphere or through social media or whatever. And I'm really glad that you recommended it to me, because it probably would have sat on my backlog for countless more years. I probably wouldn't have even looked at it, because it kind of just seems like this unassuming gardening simulator. But I think, kind of like you hinted, it is very, very much not that. Um, so personally, I like to sort of, I don't want to talk about too much about the plot. There is a plot to the game in a sense. The plot is
Mm.
essentially that you are maintaining the garden of this absent homeowner who's not to be seen anywhere. Um, and you're kind of just going around. And the main thing that happens is the game will give you Polaroids. So it gives you these Polaroids, and it will kind of show you, like, later on, for instance, it showed me like where the watering can was and where different like tools I needed were and stuff like that. So you kind of you think it's a gardening game, but it actually kind of becomes this like puzzle game, and then there starts to become these horror
Mm.
elements. And I really don't want. I mean, the plot isn't kind of the driving point of the game for me. I don't know. I don't know if you feel differently, but to me, I wasn't thinking like, oh, I'm playing this game for the plot. Like, I was playing it for the runs and the loops and the puzzle solving and that side of stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like I think yeah, I just wanted to keep discovering as much as I could, but I do think I was kind of being driven by trying to figure out what was going on. Like I really wanted to know who I was as the gardener and why I was here and what my purpose was. But I also once I started discovering like freaky things and connections, I think it made me just want to play more and more. So I was a little bit motivated by the story, but I just think that mostly motivated by exploration and finding new puzzles and areas to unlock, basically.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I should probably like explain that. Like when I said plot, I guess what I meant for myself was kind of like the plot of essentially, you know, doing the garden and stuff like that. I was much more interested, like yourself, about, you know, where these gnomes are coming from, because there's like gnomes that kind of spawn up everywhere if you do certain Polaroids and stuff, and these kind of like, I don't know how to explain. They're like horror elements, I guess. Really, is I'm trying to beat around the bush, but there are horror elements to this game. There are creatures that appear. There are, you know, there's like a dead gardener at one point that you find. And so that kind of,
Hmm.
I guess the lore in the background was much more interesting to me than the lore that was kind of at the foreground in terms of keeping this garden tidy.
I see what you mean. Yeah, I think there's a lot of like mysterious figures that can show up, or people, and you don't know who they are, or where they are, or what they're doing. But there are a lot of like jump scares, and I think just like uncanny things that you can run into that give you a really unsettling feeling. So yeah, I think it's like, who are these people, and where is this thing, and where am I? Like, it just kind of feels like a bad dream, but not really one that I want to wake up from, you know?
Yeah. So I guess getting into like the gameplay side of stuff, I don't know about you. My first run of Grun, I I treated it like a gardening game. Okay, there was some scary things that were happening. There was jump scares of like figures that would appear and close doors and stuff like this, but I kind of treated it as a gardening game. There was a percentage and I had a task list and I was there to clip the grass and to get rid of molehills and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that I was really motivated by that. Like, I love a task list in a game, and I love like, yeah, any like kind of farming sim mechanic. And I think the way that you clip the grass in Grun, because it's like a first person perspective, so you will find the tools that you need to basically complete the task list throughout your run. Um, and yeah, like when you come upon these items, it's pretty, for me anyway, it felt pretty intuitive of like, oh, I think I know how I'm going to use this item. But then what's interesting is you'll come across more items as you go, and you can kind of experiment on how you'll use those items and maybe uncover even more secrets and surprises. So I think the game like really encourages experimentation, but I was pretty fixated on kind of like what you were saying. I'm here to do my tasks. I need to clip the grass. I need to finish all of my tasks before I end my day. That was something I was really concerned about in my early runs, at least.
Well, yeah, because the whole premise is that the homeowner who you're basically working for gives you until Monday to make the garden tidy. Um, and then on top of that, like one of the first times, so there were 11 endings to this game. Um, Pretty much every single one of them, bar I think like two or three, results in you dying in a different way. Um, my
Yeah.
first one was clipping too many of the sacred flowers in the church because I was kind of just haphazardly
Mm-hmm.
cutting the grass, and I think that was when I started to kind of realize like, oh, there's more to this. There's something else going on here.
Yeah, and I honestly, like, I don't even have all of the endings yet. I think I have most of them. I think I might have 10 or something like that. But I also really appreciate games that have multiple endings, because, like, even if you don't get the true ending or whatever that means to you as a player, I'm like really a fan of experiences that make you feel like you've completed something, especially as someone who's kind of like newer at games. And it can take me quite a long time to finish games compared to like, I guess, the average player. And like, what is the average player? I don't even know. But I guess what I appreciate about Grun is that they give you that sense of an ending and an accomplishment in my eyes, where it's like, oh, I did get an ending. Like, I guess I could be done with the game. I could walk away right now, but I want to see what all the other endings are, and that's what kind of pushed me to get more endings. But yeah, like you're saying, a lot of the endings will result in you dying, and I think a lot of those endings will happen through experimentation, which I just like love when games do that, because I'm a very curious gamer. Like, when I played Dredge, I just like, my boat caught on fire when I was exploring, and I was just like, how could the game do that to me? But I guess I just like when games reward curious players, and players who are not like, when players are basically like, oh, that might hurt me, but I just have to go see what's going
Hmm.
to happen. Because that's definitely my style. And I feel like Grun really encourages that.
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting because even by so the game has like an internal clock, and by doing things you kind of progress the time forward, And it wasn't until my second or third run through that I realized that some of the Polaroids had days or times and stuff on them. And that was when I made the connection
Mm-hmm.
with the Outer Wilds. That's when I was like, oh, I need to be doing things in a certain time period. Like, what's one that I can kind of like the paddle. There's like a paddle that you need to collect in order to gain access to this boat, um, which allows you to make your way to another area earlier than you would do normally. You can only get that paddle at a certain time on the first day. Um, and so little
Mm-hmm.
bits and pieces like that. And I mean, you know, what ended up happening was I made that connection and I worked my way through the game, and I was almost there, to be honest with you. It got to Monday and I had like two of the final things that you need to collect in order to get the good ending. Um, I had two of those things that I just stumbled upon through exploring.
Mm.
Um, the only two that I hadn't got were ones that I don't feel that maybe there was a Polaroid I missed or something, but I don't feel like I would have found them on my own. Like I'll cut this for the listeners, but
Yeah, and I think like the way to get the good ending, like it is quite
mhm.
involved, like the amount of things that you have to do, and you have to do it all in one run, like in a limited amount of time. So I think that like I will definitely get there eventually and I like know what I need to do
Mhm.
sort of. It's also like this game was very popular in my friend group, so I've watched a ton of people play it and through to the good ending. Um but yeah, it just kind of like really ramps up, I feel like. But by the time you've played, like 5 hours or so, I think that's when I started getting close to figuring out how to get to all the idols and get to the good ending. But it's quite a long task list. Like even looking here on Steam, it's 53 things that you have to do in one run to get to the good ending. So it's like a lot. It's pretty
Yeah.
involved.
So I'll cut this back in now for the listeners. So I think kind of what Kate was saying just then, like there's a lot of things you have to do to get the good ending of the game. Um, and I think that's where the Outer Wilds comparison is very interesting, because with the Outer Wilds, is very much like I have to do this in a certain kind of a way almost. I did get the good ending, but I followed somebody's walkthrough, not gonna lie. Um, I think mainly
Mm-hmm.
because one, I knew we were discussing it today, and I kind of wanted to see what the good ending was and what it entailed. Um, but also because I was bested by the Outer Wilds. Still to this day, I've not finished that game, and I don't think I'll ever go back to it if I'm
Uh-huh.
honest. Because I don't know what it is. I enjoy I enjoy the kind of the run aspect of the game and the exploring and stuff like that. I don't enjoy the fact that part of my run could be ruined if I miss a certain thing. So
Mm.
the walkthrough I was following through YouTube, this guy, I don't know, have you come across the blue coin that you can get? So
Yes.
he was doing this
Yes.
thing for the blue coin, and I kept missing it. So then I kind of got annoyed because I was like, right, okay, I need to make sure that I get there. And then what I found out later on down the line was you need a very particular item to finish the game. So once you collect the four particular items you need, you then need one final particular item in order to get the good ending.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, the walkthrough I was following, he just dug this item up. It was in one of the molehills, and he dug it up.
Mm-hmm.
In my game, it wasn't there. The molehill was not there. And
Mm.
I think they've actually changed what you have to do for the good ending now, because very slightly. I don't want to ruin it because you've not got there, but basically, he dug this item and then he had it. Whereas now there are certain things you have to do and other little puzzles you have to solve to get that final item to then defeat the Finn and get the good ending. Um,
Mhm.
So I was
Mhm.
kind of like, this game. I'm very conflicted because as much as I really enjoyed the exploration, I really hate. I love and hate. It's a very complicated relationship when things are kind of time sensitive and when there's something that you can miss, because
Mhm.
it feels really good when you get it, but then when you don't get it, I'm kind of like, oh, my whole fucking run is ruined now. Um, and that's kind of what
Yeah.
bothers me. I don't know how you feel. You said, from what you said, sounds like you put a fair few hours into this game. Like, how are you still kind of enjoying? Are you finding yourself focusing solely on the good ending, or are you kind of like just exploring more of the world?
I Yeah, I think, and like I really relate to a lot of what you said because I have tried to play Outer Wilds several times and just I just don't know if it's a game I'll ever be able to really get into. It's just there's a lot like against me when it comes to that game. One of them being I'm just like not a super patient person, so I did experience this in Grun as well when it's like, oh, I have to start my run over, and that is just like such a horrible feeling, especially when you feel like you're making progress
Hmm.
finally. um and then you kind of have to it just makes you want to like, okay, let me just go, I'll just like go into this thing that I know will end the day and then I'll start over because like I've already made it so I can't have a successful run or be able to get the run that I'm the ending that I'm wanting to get out of this run. So yeah, I guess like these kinds of games are really not something that I seek out. So but I think for me, like when I was playing through Grun, I would be like, okay, this is my experience and this is the loop that I take and this is exactly what I know what to do. But then I would watch other people play and they would come upon things that I had never even discovered in the game. So I think for me, because I actually booted up the game
Mm.
last night to refresh my memory a little bit, and I was like, dang, there are so many things here that I still need to discover even after having like, I think like 9 or 10 of the endings. So I don't know, like I just think that, but I do think that the vibes carry it for
Hmm.
me mostly cuz I'm always vibes based over mechanics and gameplay. Like if there is good music or good art or like an interesting weird story that makes me feel some type of way, I will get so wrapped into that and I'll feel like so immersed. Like it just reminds me of all of the other mediums that I enjoyed before I got into video games. So I think like I'm since I prioritize that over gameplay, like I prioritize story, art, and vibes. Something about the way that Grun made me feel just has me like excited to boot it up and do a run and just see what I might come across and see what I might do differently. Um, so
Yeah, I
yeah, I
think
don't know.
definitely, and this is not anything on you. This is on me wanting to kind of, because I was so close to finishing it. I think if I wasn't doing this for the get wrecked, I would probably still be trying to work out on my own how to kind of get everything and the order to do
Mm,
things. But I mean, like, some of the stuff in this game, very much, I would say this is a more approachable way of doing this style of game than the Outer Wilds. It's because the Outer Wilds is very,
yeah,
it is very big brained. It's very like, you have to be locked in and you have to be very
yeah,
like, everything is almost like to the second in order to get the final sort of product in the Outer Wilds. Um, with this, even though there are some ways that you can kind of quote unquote mess up, um, you can still get the good ending. Um, but there are so many things in the game, like, I mean, like there's a random tent in like this cornfield that I never would have thought to
yeah,
stumble into. Um, but again, that's where the Polaroids come into it, and the Polaroids are really kind of what drives you, and what kind of hints at, like, okay, right, you should look in this kind of area, and you're trying to match up where the Polaroids are, and I don't know about you, but you get, like, for me, I got a very good feel of, um I started to get an idea of what I needed to do in the order I needed to do things. So like The paddle was one of the
Mm.
first things I got. That was like, I need to get the paddle early that day. Um, I need to do this, I need to do that. And yeah, I kind of, this is what I like about these style of games is you do get a rhythm going. And I think, like you said, with the vibes and stuff, like there's enough underlying mystery that even if you kind of quote unquote fail a run, unless you're solely going for the good run, like the good ending, you could kind of be like, okay, I'm just gonna like explore this and see what this has to offer, or like, I'm gonna go into the church when it turns to midnight and like whatever. Like there's enough things happening in the background to keep you investigating.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned the tent because I came across the tent when I was just totally lost. Like, I was just lost. And when I saw the tent, it was such a surprise to me. And I was like, oh my, like, I would never think that I would find this here. And what's in here? Let me go look inside. And then when you kind of get in the habit of your run and you start the day, it's like, okay, I'm going to go in the shed and I'll get the key and then I'll unlock this. And there are so many, like, there's a specific jump scare, I guess, that can happen at the beginning of your run the first time you play the game, where I was genuinely like so scared. And I really like horror, but I'm not really into like the first person super realistic graphics
Mm-hmm.
kind of horror. Like, I'm more into like the abstract sort of horror. So I genuinely found this game quite unsettling and really scary at times. But then it's balanced with so much like a good humor and that exploration that's driving me and just not knowing what the hell I'm going to come across next. But yeah, everyone can have such different experiences. And I've heard people say the same about other games like Outer Wilds or Obra Dinn, where it's like, oh, this is like, I didn't find that item until I was, 6 hours into the
Mm-hmm.
game, or I didn't discover this area. So I just think that's really fascinating how people can have I feel like it tells you a lot about a person to see how they're going to play games like this, because I'm really motivated by like music. So there's sort of like a trumpet you can find in this game, and then that can be its own tool. And I started like playing that instrument basically everywhere I went around the world of GRUNN, and then that can uncover some secrets. So it's just like, but maybe another player wouldn't do that. So I just love, I guess, like, yeah, seeing how people approach this game. I think it's really fascinating.
Yeah, and I mean the game does a really good job as well of um also rewarding you. I guess if you're like an achievement person, rewarding you for that
Mm,
curiosity, like that trumpet has a role that it plays in one of the achievements, and the kind of leaning into the supernatural element of what's going on. You can even get an achievement for like, I got an achievement for doing all of the garden tasks, so the garden was 100% done and stuff like that.
yeah.
And it the game does the game does reward curiosity, and I think that's something that keeps me going. And like I said, it would be hard to say because obviously I wanted to get the good ending in order to sort of be able to discuss it for the get wrecked. That's just me personally. Um, but it sounds like even somebody like yourself who didn't have that time limit, like you were kind of just playing this game, you're still like interested in this world, which is really, really sort of telling of the game and the experience.
Yeah, because that's like just kind of like who I am as a gamer. Like, I just like really appreciate that. And I feel satisfied with, okay, I got an ending. Like, that's good enough for me. But in Grun, wasn't satisfied because I just want to see what else I can discover. But the fact that I was able to like a game like this that's set up in this way with these mechanics, and even being first person, like, I actually really struggle with first person games. They usually make me a little bit sick and nauseous to play. So even on a mechanical standpoint, I think that this game is just very like palatable and approachable to just get started and like start playing, because there really are not a ton of rules and there's not a lot that you need to know. It's just like, this is a gardening game and that's all you know. You just know you're here to tend to the garden, and what else happens is kind of up to you. Um So yeah, I guess I'm just obsessed with that limited, with like going in without
Mm,
constraints, I guess, and having such an open, so many open possibilities to what you could uncover that, yeah, reflect kind of like who you are as a person. And I think getting jump scared too is just something that I really like. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I'm a big fan. So I feel like it just had the sauce for me. And I hope that there will be more games like Grun that are approachable for people to just hop into versus stuff like Outer Wilds, because I'm not trying to discount what an amazing game that is and experience for people. But for me personally, I need more games like Grun that are gonna be yeah, I guess like more approachable and make me feel empowered and smart as the player, even if I don't like yeah, I feel like I could normally play games like this. So yeah, just like really obsessed with that choice to make it so open and not have any solid rules when you get
mm.
started.
And normally at the end of this, I guess, kind of wrapping up talking grunt, normally I would go through and I would say whether or not I'd finished a game. I guess for me, what I would say is like if you have been interested in the Outer Wilds, but have maybe been put off, I guess, by like the space element, the zero G, or like how puzzly it can be. If you're looking for an introduction into those styles of games, Grun is like a really, really good entry point. It creates a really, really great atmosphere, and it really, really does encourage you to explore. And the more you explore, the more you kind of get at these underlying things that are happening. And we have not even touched the surface of like everything that's happening in this game. um, I guess for yourself, like, do you think talking about it, like, is it going to reignite you to go back and try and get the good ending?
Oh yeah, and like I've watched people get the good ending before, and so I know I can do it. Like I know what I have to do, but it just has to
Mm-hmm.
get done. And so I guess part of me, another thing about me is I sort of get when I really like a game, I actually have a really hard time finishing it. I've gotten a lot better at that over the years because of the podcast and wanting to finish games to be able to review them competently, I guess, but I just have a really hard time saying goodbye to things that I love. So I will put off, and I'm sure this is happening with Grun, like I will put off finishing a game just because I don't want to stop
Mm-hmm.
playing it and I don't want it to end. So I sort of think that's happening here a little bit, even though I already know what is going to happen and how to do it. It just sort of like I'll often, like for example, with Cult of the Lamb, I didn't do the final boss until like a year and a half later, and then I finally finished it. Like it will just take me a lot of time to let go of games that I really love, and I know it's kind of weird, but that's just how I am, I guess. And um, luckily, there are so many amazing games now. I'm learning, like as a newer gamer, like there's there's plenty of great games out there to discover. So I'm getting better at letting go of them, but yeah, I definitely am reignited. This reignited my passion for Ground because, like, just honestly just seeing it on your list, I was excited to boot up the game again. So I bet that I'm going to be getting those last couple endings pretty soon
Yeah,
here.
it's hard, isn't it? 'Cause it's almost like tying up the bow and sort of like saying goodbye to an experience, especially one if it's the like one that you've enjoyed being in the world of and stuff. So yeah, I thank you very much for the recommendation because this very much would have sat on my backlog. And I think honestly that would be that would be a travesty for a game like this to sort of just sit on my backlog and potentially not get played for years.
Mm. Yeah, of course. And I feel like I was just so happy to see it there. It's a game that I would recommend to anybody, honestly. Like even if you I mean maybe if you don't like getting jump scared, but you can kind of get past that within your first couple runs. So I think like yeah, I would love for everybody to try it. I do think that if I would have played it in 2024, because I played it in 2025, if I would have played it in 2024, it would have made my top
Mm-hmm.
10 games of the year list. So I think that I also just love experiencing things that feel like nothing I've ever experienced before. So, although Grun does use some of these familiar mechanics and they have like similar tactics to other games to get you to keep playing. I still think it's unique enough that it just feels like unlike anything I've played before, even and I have played a lot of games at this point, I guess. So yeah, I really like it for that reason too, for it being like unique and standing out.
Well, I mean, that is an accidental perfect segue into the game that I recommended to you if we're going to talk about games that are unique and stand out.
Yeah.
Um, the game I recommended to you was The Artful Escape.
You couldn't have recommended a more perfect game. Sorry, go
Really,
right
I'm
ahead.
glad. I don't know what it was. I mean, obviously, we'd only really spoke on that one episode, but there was something about it that, I mean, you sent me the list over, and I was like, I don't know why this just kind of feels like a game that she's going to gel with. So the Artful Escape is listed here as a platform video game. I guess, yeah, that's kind of one way. I don't know how I would escape. Like, I don't know how I would describe the Artful Escape, but it was developed by Beethoven and Dinosaur, published by Annapurna Interactive. I should have said GRUNN was developed and published by Sock Pop Collective, which was very interesting because when you boot the game up, it has this like very cute little like where they show the developer like intro, and it's like Sock Pop. It's like, yeah, Sock Pop. But the Artful Escape was released in 2021 initially, and then was republished in 2022 for current gen consoles and the Nintendo Switch. Going into my history with the game, I've fallen off of content creation and I need to get back into it, but life be life in. But the Artful Escape was the
Mhm.
game that I played on a whim. Through doing the podcast, Kai kind of introduced me to Annapurna, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, I would kind of, I mean, they've got their troubles recently. There's a lot of stuff happening recently with them, but Annapurna to me were known for kind of taking a chance on indie games and for maybe publishing some of the more out there video games that necessarily wouldn't have always been funded by other publishers. The Artful Escape is a great example of that. 12 Minutes is a really good example. So when I saw it on Game Pass, I was like, oh, I'll give it a go. It's Annapurna. You can't really go wrong. It's normally an interesting experience, even if the game doesn't hit.
Mhm.
And I was just fucking blown away by this game. So much so that it like made me want to do a review for it, and at least in the short term, I got back into content creation and reviewing games and stuff. But what about yourself? What's your sort of knowledge of the Artful Escape? What's your
Mm.
experience of it?
Yeah, so I thought it was so funny that you picked this game because I actually had just started playing it. Like I had played like 30 minutes of it very recently before you picked it from my list. Because I just got I just got my first PC
Mm.
basically that's not a gaming laptop, and I've been wanting to play this. It's been in my backlog for so long, and finally I felt like I had a machine that could do the game justice, like from a graphics
Mm-hmm.
standpoint. Um but I mean, tons of people have mentioned to me that I would probably like this game because I love music. I'm a radio DJ. I work with musicians, professional musicians. Like that's music is part of my everyday life for my career as well as just what I enjoy. Um, and so I've had a lot of people say like, "Oh, you should check out this game," and I just was waiting for the right moment, and the stars aligned. So I just thought it was so funny that you picked
Wow.
this from the list of like all the games that I sent you. Um, and yeah, I didn't know anything about it. Like I didn't know what the gameplay would be like. I knew that it had some iconic voice actors in it, like Jason Schwartzman, who's one of my favorites. And I knew that the game just looked beautiful, that it was about music, but I didn't know much else going in until yeah, I picked it, or I decided to boot it up on my new machine, and then you recommended it like very quickly after that. So I don't really have I guess yeah, I've just been looking forward to it for a while and waiting for the best time to
I
play.
had to, as soon as you sent the list over, um, I saw it and I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, this is not to kind of spoil my thoughts, but this is like anyone, everyone should play this game as far as I'm concerned. I'm getting into final thoughts already, but everyone should play this game. But I think, especially for me, if you are someone who is a musician or if you're someone who is trying to do any kind of creative thing in any way, I guess, and is kind of struggling in terms of like how to kind of like put yourself into what you do and the way to present yourself, I guess, because there's
Mm.
at least I myself place a lot of pressure on myself in terms of like what the final product's going to be and how people are going to view it, and kind of a lot of internal pressure as to like what it is that I create and what I make and what I say when I create things. So the plot of the game follows Francis Vendetti, who is the nephew of a very famous folk music legend called Johnson Vendetti. And basically, for the most part, in the beginning of the game at least, Francis is kind of living in his uncle's shadow.
Mm.
He lives in the birthplace of Johnson Vendetti. Everybody knows that he is Johnson Vendetti's nephew, and he is also a guitarist. He makes his own music, and so everyone's very like, "Oh my god, he's going to be the next Johnson Vendetti." Um, I guess initial thoughts going into the game. What were your kind of thoughts about Francis and his situation and kind of the struggles that he's going through?
Well, I kind of thought, well, first of all, I loved that it was set in like a sort of like Colorado neoliberal
Hmm.
town. Like I feel like it's very similar to places like where I grew up, because I'm from Utah and from the mountains. And it just like I think they really nailed that vibe of like folk musician from this like little mountain town in Colorado. And yeah, I thought like because like he seems like really he is young and it seems like he's got this legacy that he feels like he has to live up to, and that's very clear from the jump of the game. It's like he doesn't really know who he is outside of this I guess yeah, like the pressures of being the next folk musician legend like his uncle. It's his uncle, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I feel like I understood like, oh, this is about to be a coming of age story. Like I could kind of see where the story was gonna go. Um, but it ended up like really thoughtfully touching on a lot of themes. I think that I myself, like you're saying, like everyone should play this game because a lot of the themes are relatable to I think a lot of people, like even us as content creators or whatever. Like it can really be hard sometimes to think about how much of ourselves we put into what we actually create and put out there. And I think that is like a big theme of this game that I guess I wasn't expecting, because right away I was like, oh, it's just about him and his story. I didn't realize it was going to be so, I guess, universal in terms of the messaging. But yeah, I think like it has so many thoughtful references to music, and I was just here for the ride. Like I was here for this journey, and I had no idea what was going to happen next. I went in thinking I know exactly what the story will be, and I came out like thinking, oh, I had no idea that I was about to visually witness all of these incredible things. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think I was just excited to get going, but they really set the scene and paint the picture really well right from the get go.
Yeah, because I mean, like from the get go, he is supposed to be playing at this festival the town is hosting, which is celebrating the 20th anniversary of his uncle's like groundbreaking debut album. And he's expected to play some of his uncle's songs. And so I think kind of like what you was thinking, I was like, okay, this is going to be um, not in the gameplay, but like story wise. I was like, this is going to be some sort of like life is strange situation. There's going to be some like
Mm.
coming of age, self discovery in a small town, like you said, like, you know, very sort of. I was expecting, I guess, quote unquote normal, but this is very much like a yes and game. Um,
Yeah.
because Francis doesn't want to play folk music, he wants to play rock music. Um, and the only way I can kind of explain the rest of the plot, that like what happens, is like, I think actually looking on the Wikipedia, like the um one of the people who was involved, what was his name? Sorry, his name's Galvatron, Johnny Galvatron. My God, that's a cool name. He formed like a band and stuff. But he described the story as like kind of like David Bowie traveling to space after he made Ziggy Stardust. Like it had real big like Ziggy Stardust vibes in the way that it's not just in space, but it's very flamboyant and it's very sort of theatrical, and there are like lasers and crazy alien people, and all of that is kind of like a really cool backdrop to what is really a story about, like, I guess, stepping out of other people's shadows and discovering who you are yourself and doing what it is that you want to do.
Mm. Totally, and I feel like I totally got like the Ziggy Stardust vibes. I and the game is so aware of itself. Like it's kind of corny and it's kind of like making fun of itself at points. Like, oh, like there's like I'm in this psychedelic mushroom forest now. Like, whoa, man, totally. And I'm gonna shred on the guitar. Like I just love that the game performed so well in my eyes, and it was like so fantastic, but it took itself seriously like in its execution, but it was also very self-aware, which was something that I appreciated because I'm like, oh, I'm such a music kid and I feel like this game is kind of making fun of me a little bit in a way that I find charming.
Mm-hmm. And it's very much like the overall kind of thing that I remember was very much like the characters around Francis encouraging him to like lean into his like quirkiness and his kind of, because I don't like, I mean, I grew up in like an urban city in the United Kingdom, like I don't really have that kind of insight into what it is to come from like a small town like yourself, like in the like rural mountains or whatever. um so for me it was interesting because it almost kind of, I got the impression that like the people around him were expecting Francis to be this like straight laced folk singer, and he was almost like being pigeonholed into this like not just a genre of music, but also like how he conducts himself, how he dresses, how he kind of presents himself. Um, and so
Mm.
he kind of goes on this like massive story where it's like, just do what you want to do, you know? Like, if you, I mean, God, we're getting into the gameplay, but like some of the freaking, like, I don't even know how to explain, like, the like stage battles that happen and like the kind of,
The bosses, yeah.
yeah, the environments you find yourself in. They're just so out there that I was honestly expecting part of it to kind of be like this was all in his head or something. This was kind of like a dream he had, because it feels like a fever dream. It feels like this
Hmm.
kind of fever dream of like him battling against being pigeonholed. Um, I don't know. Yeah, overall, obviously, without going into spoilers, like, what did you feel about the kind of plot? I mean, you spoke quite highly of it so far, but like, was there anything else that you wanted to kind of add to the conversation around the plot?
Well, I just think, like, without spoiling anything, I just appreciate the kinds of perspectives that it tells that different artists or even just like non artists can maybe have about themselves. Like, there is a character in the game who is extremely gifted and does a really amazing job, but very much is faceless and behind the scenes, but is still creating and is still like a very valuable artist. And so you kind of get to see that journey too, and like how this character deals with, maybe I'm not ready to let people see who I am physically, and I'm going to keep hiding behind my what I create, and I don't need to be recognized. And do what are the pros and cons of being recognized, and then you see the struggles of like, yeah, I'm being pigeonholed, but do I have the strength to actually be who I want to be, musically? Because I think there's so many, and I've worked with a lot of musicians who like they do feel like they have to kind of conform to
Mm.
what the standards are, or like they have to practice. This is how they practiced and were educated, so this is what they have to do. And there is pushback sometimes when they try to do something more experimental or blending of genres. So I don't know, like I just as someone that works with musicians all the time, I just found it so relatable. And there are even moments in the game that reference like there's a part where you get to choose like what you want on your writer, and I look at musician writers pretty much all the time for my job, and I just like I just found it so funny and so thoughtful. And yeah, there's just a lot of great stuff here, and I think story wise it's going to be really inspiring to a lot of people. It might not hit for everybody, but I just think there are so many good things to pull from about the themes and like where the story goes. And even though it's not anything like revolutionary, and it's kind of, you know, it's kind of predictable sometimes. But then other times it's like, oh dang, like I'm about to cry. So I don't know, it's like full of surprises. I think the narrative is it's really strong and really unique, and it's almost hard to talk about because there are things that are so unexpected sometimes and things that hit me in a way I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, and I think that's the main thing I want to sort of agree with and say is like this this game kind of hit home hard more than I was expecting. Um, because this was kind of I played this in a time when I was very like I want to get back into content creating, but I want to do something a little bit different. I want to kind of meld. I like the kind of how can I explain what I'm trying to say? I like the like personal approach to doing videos, right? But also every review
Hmm.
I'd done previously was like for the website I was writing, and I was trying not to be personal because it was supposed to be a review for an outlet. So I was trying to. I mean, the Artful Escape video I did for this was very much like I tried to kind of bring a storytelling element to it and kind of bring almost like thematics to it and kind of like I don't know. I wanted it to be more than a review. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that is ironic that
Hmm.
this was kind of the game that made me do something the way I wanted to do it and not just do like a review where I read a script and there was gameplay playing in the background. I tried to bring in like swelling music from the beginning. I tried to kind of add this like atmosphere and add this like storytelling element to a review that I was doing. Um, and I think it's just kind
Hmm.
of ironic that like this is the game that I did that for, given like everything that's in the kind of the
Mm.
plot and what it explores and stuff. So it's interesting. I definitely think it brings a lot of themes to. I mean, like I'm not. I mean, I play the drums, but I'm not like a musician. Do you know what I mean? I think that's a different kind of
Hmm.
thing. I'm not out here making music. I'm not presenting myself as a musician. But interestingly, even like as somebody who wants to do content creation more, as somebody who is trying to do photography and stuff like that, like there is very much, I mean, you get it in photography a lot. Like I'm just rambling now, but you get it in photography a lot where like you talk to people. Some people were very like, there are certain rules in photography, certain like compositions that you use Um, Whereas I like shooting like what they classify as like street photography. I like taking more kind of candid shots of things that are happening in the moment that don't
Hmm.
always follow those rules. And it was really interesting because I went out and took some took some pictures of like a local town and like showed them to some people I work with and stuff who were also interested in photography. And like, even though they don't follow the kind of the rules and they don't follow the compositions, they're still they were still like respected. Do you know what I mean? They were still like, oh, this is a really cool picture. You can see like
Yeah.
what you were going for, and like it still has a message behind it, even if it doesn't kind of follow the composition and follow the rules. Um, so it was interesting to me playing this how much, even though it's centered around music and like musical identity, it still hits home to pretty much anyone, regardless.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because I feel like that's so true for any kind of artistic medium or honestly like anything that we do that brings us joy or, there are so many non-traditional ways that you can get into art or a hobby. Like I'm thinking of, like I don't consider myself a musician, but I've learned how to make music with the limited tools that I have, like even through playing video games I make music through like a little tiny cassette synthesizer. I don't know anything about music theory, but I feel like I've been able to create some things by, yeah, just like finding my own way to do it and, yeah, doing things that are, I guess, non traditional. And I kind of feel like, if people weren't doing that, like if we were all just like following the standards, I guess, or traditions for each artistic medium, we wouldn't have all these new artistic mediums. And I just think that that is like the beauty of life and creation and expressing yourself, and of this game is like really giving you that message of like, yeah, like you kind of have to break the rules sometimes to, like, I guess, like express yourself and be who you truly are, but also to create things. You're ultimately creating something for yourself, right? Because that's kind of what the game touches on too, is like you're not making music for other people. You're just being yourself, and like what comes out of you comes out of you. And people are going to like, some people are really going to like that, and I love that message so much.
Yeah, yeah. Um, let's talk about the gameplay a bit, because otherwise I will just harp on about because the themes of this game are yeah, they I fucking love them. I do love them. The gameplay wise, it's essentially, I mean, it kind of like a platform game, but it's side scrolling if I remember rightly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, like it's like platformer, but not, but it's also like not a rhythm game, but it kind of is. I don't know.
yeah, I don't really know how you explain it. I mean, you're kind of just like, for the most part, you're running through environments, talking to people. The things I really remember are those kind of rhythm sections and the stage battles and stuff like that. I think gameplay wise, everything kind of felt as it needed to at that moment. Like everything felt appropriate. Like if I was doing, like for instance, like the big stage battles, like it made sense to kind of have them as these like rhythm sections where you're like pressing buttons in a certain order and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's like and like I said, I didn't know what to expect gameplay wise going in, and I think they've done a really beautiful job here at making their game, I guess, approachable for most skill levels to be able to complete, which I appreciate because, I think there's a lot of different kinds of people that could get a lot out of this game, and gameplay wise, it's like, yeah, it recommends a controller, but I actually played with mouse and keyboard, and you kind of get to play your guitar whenever you want, and it always sounds good. Like while you're platforming, you can turn on your guitar and you can like jump higher in the air if you click or press shift, and you'll do like this little, it'll have this like little sparkly effect and you'll jump further. And so the game does a really great job at just being like, yeah, like you gotta follow the rhythm, and you have to press these certain buttons when you're doing the stage battles and the sort of like boss battles. But otherwise, like you can just you can play the guitar and it will always sound good. And I think that was such a smart choice because it really helps like immerse you in the world of the game and like believing that you are this character, and you also get to name yourself, which is cool. So yeah, I just think they did so many smart things mechanically speaking to make it, to just like really let the parts that they wanted to, that they were intending to have shine. And I do like platforming, and like it's just fun to jump around the world and like see where you're going to end
Mm,
up, and it's very graphically beautiful. So I think the platforming and the rhythm, like stage battle mechanics, worked really well for me in the end. I think at first I was going to be critical a little bit of like, why is the gameplay so light, but I actually think that that's necessary to, for it to be as impactful and universal as I think it has, as I think that like it is, you know?
mm. And I think that's the thing for me is like the gameplay for me was kind of like I was like, yeah, fine, this is just kind of like a way of me making my way through the story. Outside of
Hmm.
those stage battles, and there's like a talk show bit. Is that right? That's where you kind of you like sit down with this like alien host, and you're like they're like questioning you as to
Yeah,
like
yeah.
what it is that you're doing, and you're like, oh, like I'm melding these genres, or I'm like transcending time and space or whatever, and like it's very interesting to like because that kind of like again it all of the gameplay kind of comes back into the themes of like Francis like finding himself and really like cementing who he is as a musician, as a creator, like whatever you want to call it. But I think the thing for me that stood out the most was the visuals, the audio, the kind of the environments you find yourself in, and the only way I can explain it is like all of it felt like an intergalactic space show. Like that was the only way to really describe it.
Yeah, no, truly, it's so hard to describe because it is just, it's fantastic. Like, I think if you have headphones and you have put it on full screen, like, you are bound to be extremely immersed in the world of this game because it's just jaw dropping, honestly. Like, the visuals are absolutely incredible. And yeah, like hard to describe because they're all sort of like made up to fit the world of this game. Like you might encounter a boss that has like all of these like horns, like not like trumpets basically,
Mm-hmm.
or like different like noise makers, and the saxophone boss is like this giant, like looks like this like giant sea creature with all of these horns coming out of its head, and it's just, it's hard to describe because it is so fantastical, and every like the color palettes of all of these different worlds, it's just so bright and rich. And yeah, like honestly, probably one of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful, like game I've played visually speaking. Like it's just, I don't know how else to describe it other than it's incredible. And it, yeah, it's so cool.
It is really cool. And, you know, just going through it, and it kind of changes, like, if I remember rightly, like, as Francis kind of starts to discover who he is and the kind of look he's going for and the aesthetic and the sort of style he want of music he wants to make. I remember it kind of changing and becoming more like space lasers and very sort of like theatrical in that sense, rather than being kind of whimsical space planet. Sounds like a weird way of
Mm.
describing it, but like it kind of like there are periods where you're kind of running along and it's just like clouds and there's like aliens in the background and stuff, but then come later on there's like light bridges and there's lasers and there's like people, like giant people in the background who are like playing instruments and stuff, and it kind of, as he solidifies himself more, it kind of begins to fit around what he feels he's going to present himself as.
Yeah, that's so true. Like the world does get more rich and specific and like bigger as he discovers like who he is. Yeah, it's a really good point. I don't think I realized that, but yeah, you're definitely right. At the beginning, it's more like sort of generic backgrounds. Like they're still really beautiful, but it's like, platforms, mountains, trees, clouds. And then as you go, it just gets like, I don't even know what I'm looking at, but I don't care because it looks great.
Yeah, like he starts off, he like almost is like, right, I know it wants to be like extraterrestrial. I know I want it to be sort of literally out of this world, and then he kind of ends up, yeah, like focusing on the specific thing. It's really, yeah, really interesting, really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry. I was just gonna say that on like sort of in the middle of the game you also get the option to do like a character customization sort of, which really cements, I think, that point that you made of the world like getting more, I guess, yeah, more specific to who the character is. And then I think it's cool that they give the player the opportunity to sort of maybe bring themselves into it. And from a style
mm,
perspective, I had a lot of fun with that part
I didn't
specifically.
even,
So I want to make sure I called that out because it was a great surprise.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's interesting. So it's almost like you get to kind of put yourself in there as well. Yeah.
hmm
What I was going to say was I finished my time with the game when I played it. Have you finished the Artful Escape as of recording?
Yes, yes. I finished it or yeah, yesterday. I think it took me about two play sessions because it's a short game, which I love. I love a short game. So yeah, I'm like, you really nailed the recommendation based on not knowing me very well because I love short games and I love music and I love the vibes. Like I was talking about during GRUNN, like I'm very vibes forward, art forward over
Mm.
gameplay mechanics. So that's just the way that I like to interact with video games because of my background and who I am as a person. And yeah, so I just think like I'm so happy that I got to play it. I enjoyed it so much. It was just such a great recommendation on your part. And yeah, I like really hope that more people play it. It's absolutely iconic. And also, this developer's next game is coming out this year. Hopefully, it's called Mixtape. And I also really wanted to play the game at this time because I'm really looking forward to Mixtape. And no doubt that it's going to look and sound amazing after what I just experienced with the Artful Escape.
Oh well, perfect. It sounds like like a happy little accident that you played it. Then I didn't even. I just recommended it to you like on a whim because it was on your list, and I was like, yeah, she should play that. So that's really, yeah, that's really interesting. Um, before we wrap up, was there anything else you wanted to say about the Artful Escape or Grun?
Hmm. I don't think so. I just appreciate the recommendation. It was really awesome, and I'm so happy that you checked out Grun. I feel like these are two games that are really different, but very, very vibes based. So if you enjoy that sort of thing, check them out. And also, thank you so much for having me. It's been a fun conversation. I liked getting to know a little bit more about like, yeah, like putting like your history, I guess, and like what this game kind of meant to you at the time that you played. So yeah, I hope that I think it could be something that a lot of people need. So hopefully listeners that haven't played
Yeah,
it yet, check it
definitely.
out.
Um, well, before we say goodbye to everyone, I'll give you one last chance just to shout out No Small Games again, and we'll have it in the show description, but just tell people where they can find you and what it is that you guys do.
Yeah, so my name is Kate Hunter. I also go by Cater Blossom, and that's where you can find me online in most places. And yeah, nosmallgames.com is where you can find all of our content, reviews, articles. Actually, at the time this episode comes out is perfect because there's an article on the site right now about my favorite indie game music from 2025 that I collaborated with Andrew from Dialogue Tree, which was really fun. So if you want some music recommendations and good games, you can check that out. And yeah, we do, like I said, bi weekly deep dives on video games, indie games specifically, and we're just having a great time. And yeah, coming up on our big third-year anniversary, so really excited for that. But yeah, hopefully y'all will check us out. We're fun. We're easygoing. We're very conversational. So we're just basically just having a blast together. And if people enjoy that, then they can
Yeah,
tune
and the
in.
people absolutely should. Both you and Emily do an amazing job, and it's really great to hear that you're coming up to that anniversary soon. Um, like I said, if you haven't already and you do want to check them out, all the details will be in the description below, just for you to be able to click through. Kate, I know you said it, but thank you very much for joining me. Thank you again for recommending GRUNN, and I'm glad that you had a great time with the Artful Escape. Yeah, it was a pleasure chatting to you.
Of course, yeah, likewise, and thank you so much, Ben.
With that said, I will end the episode here. Thank you everybody for listening. I'm just looking to see, probably should have repaired this beforehand. And next week on Play Along Podcast will be the finale of our current series, which is 1,000 Times Resist. And me, Jared, and Kai will be discussing our kind of final thoughts of the game and what we thought about the ending. And I will also be unveiling my next main series for Play Along on my 1st of 2026. So hopefully you guys join us for that. Thank you again to everybody listening. Thank you again to Kate for joining me. And we will catch everyone in the next episode.